And it's sad because the government is actually obstructing us from dealing effectively with lone wolf terrorists.
Really? That is that's an interesting dynamic. Explain that a little bit more to us.
Yeah, like for example, we all know or we hear a watch list. That's what it is. And because the watch list is not a stop list. By that I mean every day there are thousands upon thousands of people that we have probable cause to believe that they have terrorist associations that we wave into the United States, believing that somebody's watching them.
Yeah.
Or what the public believes is that the watch list is the stop list and they can't get in, but they're getting in and nobody's watching them. That's one way. Two, President Obama, I think in 2011, restricted law enforcement from surveilling mosques and any Muslim organizations. And much of the radicalization goes on at mosque.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, like the Boston Marathon bomber, Cameron, the older brother. Had we been allowed to surveil mosques, we could have stopped the Boston Marathon bombing. Just profiling. How about profiling? It's a dirty word, but very effective enforcement technique.
Yes.
Encryption. I mean, people are worried that we're going to listen into their conversations about, cheating on their taxes or cheating on their wives. No, I mean, if you really think about it, if you got them to hide, I mean, first of all, that's not going to happen. Have there been abuses of that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Well,
but
yeah.
In the realm of counterterrorism, we need to follow people to the dark web.
Well, yeah.
Once they get there, that's where they make the plans to kill Americans. So these are just some of the ways.
We've got John Legato joining us today. We're doing a special taping for iHeartRadio with John Legato. He is an amazing author. Find him on Facebook, also Twitter, and he has a great book called The Near Enemy, and he joins us today. And this book, incredibly well written. Tell me about the writing process, my friend.
Well, I was a Marine back in the 60s in Vietnam, and then spending all those years in law enforcement, undercover and working narcotics. And in between that, I had 10 years working with handicapped children. So the dialogue, I got the dialogue down. My whole adult life, I've been talking like the characters in the book. And it's a unique fraternity, combat Marines and law enforcement. And they speak a different way, and so there's a certain realism to the book.
Well, and talk a little bit about that, because there is a lot of realism to the books, something that you don't see in other books of this genre.
Well, it's funny is some of the people have commented to me that, well, they don't talk that way, or they would never talk that way. I actually toned it down for the book, and it's not that law enforcement officers are insensitive or combat situations. It's just that the situation is so intense that you break it up with humor and you go to the extremes. And let me give you an example. If you're sensitive about anything and you are a Marine or a cop, your buddies will go right for it. Like if you have a big nose, or if you're short, or if you're Mexican, you're going to hear. I mean, you're going to hear it. But
yes.
And that's what people don't understand, that we're so politically correct that everybody had a nickname. You were a big nose, you were beak. Anyway, I don't even want to say some of this stuff on the radio.
Yeah. Well, John Legato joins us here on the broadcast. USMC retired. He's a former deep cover FBI special agent, author of a brand new book, The Near Enemy, a John Booker thriller, and he's with us today here on our broadcast. Now, being a college professor and teaching counterterrorism and international security at Campbell University at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, how did that prepare you to write this book?
Well, my last year and a half, I was assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and that's kind of interesting because before 9/11, the FBI really didn't take counterterrorism seriously. They had a squad called Foreign Counterintelligence, they just get from and they never took action.
Yeah.
And realized that terrorist goals and we need that criminal. So I work in criminal organized crime, and they said you're in task force. So now Campbell has been an eye-opening thing because all my students are Marines, and all of them have been deployed. So when I start discussing counterterrorism, I have intelligence officers in that classroom, and let me tell you, it's not like your average classroom. It's amazing that their knowledge and their perception of what needs to be done. And what's ironic about it is it gets around to the same thing that the government is failing. In other words,
yeah.
You hear this 17 intelligence. We don't have 70. What we have is we have 3 or 4 of the main ones. But even the Department of Energy has a intelligence aspect to it. The problem is none of these intelligence agencies and divisions and subdivisions share the intelligence. So we have had massive intelligence failures dating back to Pearl Harbor. Or how about the Trojan horse, you know? You know what I'm saying? So in and of itself, had we shared the intelligence among all the U.S. intelligence agencies and sub-agencies, 9/11 would have never happened, but we didn't share it.
We've got John Legato with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. We are taping this special broadcast as we are covering an event, and we wanted to provide you with a good program. We've got a good one today. John Legato with us today, The Near Enemy. Now, tell us a little bit about the design of the cover of the book.
Well, my second book was called Dirty Boys, and I'm getting around it. I wrote that book, and since I wrote that book, 3 things happened. In the book, a justice of the Supreme Court is killed to tilt the court to the left, and then Justice Scalia died. The second thing was a specific nuclear power plant was sabotaged. It was the Indian Point nuclear power plant in New York. After I wrote the book, they had several incidents. I think they closed it. And the third thing was 2 days after the Boston Marathon bombing, that there was a Texas fertilizer plant that went up, and they had, many, many people died, and they initially labeled it an accident. But in the book, it wasn't, and a year later, it came out that it wasn't an accident. So getting to your question, the cover of the book is Ohio State Stadium. And after I wrote the book, and the editor, the publisher had it, there was a lone wolf terrorist attack at the Ohio State campus. But I had wrote there was a terrorist attack in the book before the terrorist attack actually happened. So I'm not saying I'm psychic or anything, but that's the cover of the book.
Yes.
The Ohio, yeah.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. We've got John Legato with us today, The Near Enemy. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. And so working on this book and putting this book out there, what do you want readers to take away from your writing?
Well, I really want them to take away that in a lot of ways we got to get it together in America, because what's going to happen is when ISIS loses, I think they already lost Mosul, when they lose Raqqa, their next big front is going to be lone wolf terrorism. And in fact, right now on the ISIS websites, they're saying, don't come here anymore. We want you to kill people in your hometown.
Yeah.
So we have to defeat it. We have to get ahead of it. And with the difficult, obviously, they're lone wolf terrorists. So the book gets into, well, how do you isolate and infiltrate? Like, for example, I infiltrated the Italian mafia. And they had an organization. We knew who they were. We identified them. And it was like any infiltration. But we don't know who the lone wolf terrorists are. So the book goes into the ways that we can actually mitigate lone wolf terrorism. For example, I'll get back to the list. We have hundreds of thousands of people that we've identified that have terrorist ties. So they come into the ports of entry, and the customs guy sees a red flag. You're on the watch list. He says, "Why are you here?" "I'm here to visit my cousin." "Have a nice day." If they're on the watch list, if we have probable cause or reasonable suspicion, why are we letting them in? We let them all in. No, we don't stop one person on the watch list from entering the country. We have to get rid of the mosque policy. We have to allow profiling.
Yeah.
We have to be allowed to go to encrypted sites without getting a FISA warrant. And the unfortunate thing, and I say this, I hate to say it, because it's the truth, is it's not going to change until thousands of Americans are in body bags with lone wolf terrorist attacks, and then loosen up on some of these things, and we could virtually. The other thing is, vetting. We can't become Europe, but unless we do some vetting and do some assimilation, you cannot come to this country and not assimilate, because what we're doing is creating two Americas.
Yes.
And unfortunately, Muslims do not assimilate. So
I'll tell you, you hit that right on the head. We have been talking. Little side note here: we've been talking with a gentleman for the past, I don't know, probably 10 years or so on our radio program. His name's IQ Al Rizzoli, and IQ is a former Muslim. He got away from the faith and joined up with Christianity, and he has studied the Quran and all these different things, and everything you're saying right here, John, he has been saying for 10 years. And why is it that folks are just starting to hit on this?
I don't know. I think on one hand we have a percentage of the population that don't listen to anything, but what you have is, in the book I go into why a good Muslim can never be a good American. And it goes into their religion. They can never accept the Constitution.
Yep.
They can never. There's 10 reasons why. And when I say that, and I post it on a Facebook page or something, or people that read it say, you're a racist. But you cannot be a good Muslim and a good American. So what we have, if you have immigration without assimilation, you first have segregation, and then eventually, when the numbers get bad, you'll have invasion. So people, I'm third generation. My grandparents were from Italy. They wanted to assimilate bad, and they learned the language, they got jobs, and they wouldn't let us speak Italian at home because we were Americans.
Yes.
And my father fought in World War II against Italians. He was Italian. His parents were born in Italy. But he was an American first. So unless we can, have these pockets of people that don't assimilate, you're going to have two Americas. And if you doubt that, just look at Europe.
Well, you hit that on the head again, my friend. We've got John Legato with us today. The Near Enemy is the latest book from him, and we are going to be chatting with Larry Houck here at the bottom of the hour here on this special taping for iHeartRadio and live today on Radio Xenu as well. With this book, tell us about some of the different reviews you've gotten on the book so far.
Well, the reviews have been good because, I don't know if you read it, but it moves along and it's got a good plot. I mean, as far as the reviews go. But, I had a gentleman, and I don't know who he was, but he resented anything with the word Muslim in. And he was a Muslim. But just one person. So, but the reviews have been excellent. I think on Amazon, I know Dirty Boy has got like 50 out of 55s, in terms of the highest you can get. Some of the reviews with some of the agencies and the organizations that review books have been great. So I'm pleased with the reviews. You know what, though?
Yes.
I wish the government would look at the book and say, listen, we can use this book, as a guide to how we can deal with lone wolf terrorists. But, it's not going to happen.
With that whole concept, when did that become a thing, I guess, with the lone wolf terrorism? How far back did that stretch, my friend?
Well, I mean, you always had people that, that were anti-American
Yeah.
and people that were sort of looking, searching.
Yeah.
And in the book, I go into the psychological factors of what makes a lone wolf terrorist. They're lonely, they have low self-esteem, they want to belong, and ISIS is sending out 90,000 hits a day into the ethersphere, recruiting that type of person. And once you get that person hooked, it's a short trip between you belong to us, you're one of us, to now you have to kill in the name of Allah. And they're willing to do anything because they get brainwashed watching these videos and these websites, and they become, anti-American in a nanosecond. It doesn't take long to convince them. So it's going to be a never-ending battle because, we have the internet, and the government won't, and not only the government, but you have, Facebook and these others that won't self-censor. They won't censor these people. And help with encryption. If Google will help you get encrypted and talk to somebody else on an encrypted site. They'll assist you.
Yeah. It is an interesting conversation today. We've got John Legato with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast at 21 minutes after the hour. Thanks for joining us here on iHeartRadio, live on Radio Xenu today. And John, this book is, as I mentioned earlier, incredibly well written. What do you have coming up next? What can we look for you as an author next, my friend?
Well, I killed my wife in this book at the end. So I have to, and I quit the FBI, fictionally.
Yeah.
I actually retired from the FBI, but so I'm going to have to go back after the guy that killed her, which is a demon from a radical mosque. You talk about things in the book, you wouldn't believe it, but one of the most radical mosques is in Columbus, Ohio, and a lot of the superstar terrorists go through this mosque. So when you're reading this book, like I keep saying, it's 80-90% is true.
Yes.
For example, the dark web 4, TOR, that's true. The X key store to break the code is true. And this mosque is true, and some of the names of the terrorists are true. It actually goes into what we could have done had we broken the rules or been allowed to break off the grid a little bit. But I have to bring my wife either back or in the next book. I haven't decided yet.
It is definitely an interesting conversation today. Tell us a little bit about writing. What attracted you to writing, and more specifically, writing books?
I wrote for the college newspaper, and I wrote for some newspapers, some columns. So I enjoyed writing, and as you may know, it's very difficult to get published. So
yes. I
wrote some books, and you get a million rejection letters. In fact, I've had conversations with Tom Clancy and some of the big authors who got rejected at every major publishing house. But if you love writing, which I do, I just kept writing. And I think what helped me is my Marine Corps experience, my FBI experience, and my counterterrorism. That now I'm writing, and I think the publishers looked at it in a different way, that I had a certain amount of experience in what I was writing, and that probably helped. But I wouldn't be writing if I didn't publish. In the process.
Yeah. Well, do you have a specific writing style you adhere to?
Yeah, I write in the first person, which is, for me, I wrote my first book in the third. I find the first person because the audience could identify with the character. I have strong women characters. As you read the book, there's 3 strong ladies in that book who are every bit as good a shot. And for example, Agent 36 kills a 300-pound terrorist. She strangles him to death. So we don't have weak ladies in the book. And I think the key to it is the dialogue is actually the dialogue that we use in law enforcement. And I think the reader can look at that and say, yeah, that's the way. And this could happen. I never put anything in there that somebody would read and say that would never happen. So the readers get caught up in the dialogue and very irreverent, satirical dialogue.
Well, it is definitely an interesting journey, and definitely a very interesting book. I appreciate you making time for us today. Before we let you go, if people want to buy the book, they can pick it up on Amazon. How do they get a hold of you online, whether social media or otherwise?
The best way is if you go to John Legato, Ligato, _author on Facebook. So it's go on Facebook and hit John Legato, Ligato, author, and I will answer any and all inquiries or messages. And I would love to communicate with the people who read the book. Tell me what you think of it.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate it, my friend, and looking forward to our next conversation. Thanks for being with us, and have yourself a wonderful day.
You too. Anytime.
Thank you,
care.
my friend. John Legato with us today on Skype, and we are going to take a brief time out, and when we come back, we will continue to chat here. We are waiting on the arrival of Jaybird Wells because she she unfortunately booked this next guest that I